Hey guys, we've restarted this podcast like 3 times because we just keep laughing, but let's just go straight into it. We're really excited to be back and to chat more rugby. There's been a lot going on, a lot of rugby happening, so I'm really keen for our chat today. Mark, how have things been going since our last chat? You doing well?
Yeah, I'm doing well, just enjoying all the rugby on TV, loads to watch, SixNations, preparation series, it's been really exciting.
It has been, and we've got some cool rugby to look forward to as well. The Varsity Cup is starting soon. We might cover a little bit of that, maybe just wrap up the season as a whole, when the season's done and as it's going, speak about here and there. But today, we're going to be speaking about the preparation series, which just concluded. We're going to speak about the Rainbow Cup that's coming up. We're going to speak about the SixNations that just happened, and we're also going to speak about the upcoming Lions Tour and the decision that was made for the Lions Tour to be here in South Africa. So we've got a lot of interesting things to speak about today. So let's first speak about the preparation series. So we all know that, well, maybe not everyone knows, but there were big efforts from Rassie, Rasmus and Saru to speed up the game, because in the Currie Cup and Super Rugby Unlocked, it was like a Sunday night stroll to every scrum. They're taking their time. Guys were unfit. But the preparation series, it was a lot faster. We could see that the rules to make the scrums happen quicker and the lineouts to happen quicker, it sped up the rugby, and there was actually a lot of really exciting rugby. A lot of youngsters got a chance to show their talent, and it's actually looking pretty good.
Yeah, I think I can change my tune now, finally. The last couple of podcasts have been quite negative about the local SA rugby, but I feel like the last couple of weeks has been exceptional, and the rugby has been high-paced, it's been exciting, there's been points, people scoring tries, youngsters. I mean, the Stormers seem to have an abundance of loose forwards just coming out of nowhere, just playing excellent rugby. Everyone who gets a chance is playing well. And that's really, we've lifted up again now. I think if you'd asked me 2 months ago, are we ready for the Lions? I'd say no, but now it's looking a lot more positive.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree. It's been really cool. There were some exceptional tries in that preparation series. Did you see that try by that Sharks prop?
Yeah,
Nkulu,
unbelievable.
From like 60 meters out. So there's a lot of young talent coming through, and I don't think we'll ever have a problem of a lack of young talent in South Africa. I think we'll always have young talent. So that's nice and positive. And it was a nice way for the guys to prepare for the upcoming Rainbow Cup. And one thing that did kind of occur to me though is, I think also the rugby was more exciting because there was no title. You know, in the Currie Cup, everyone played to win. They wanted to win the title, so they played it safe. For this preparation series, there was no title. They weren't playing for anything specific. No bragging rights or anything. It was just like a whole bunch of friendly matches. So I think that also encouraged them to experiment and try new things, because losing wasn't a big deal.
Yeah, I think it was interesting to see what happens when you give people the freedom to do whatever they want. And you see even with Western Province, they had some of the assistant coaches taking over as the head coaches for certain games, and we saw Morat get a chance of being captain. So it's very exciting to see what happens when you put people in positions where they can express themselves and do what they like, and then you see how they step into that role, and it's very good to see. Not just seeing the same old guys playing week in, week out, seeing youngsters come in and just performing. It's positive.
Totally, absolutely agree. Let's now branch into chatting about the Rainbow Cup, because the preparation series was preparation for the Rainbow Cup. Okay, there's a lot to talk about. First, Mark, do you think our teams are ready to take on Europe? We had a little bit of a disadvantage, South Africa, because all the games are going to be in Europe. None of them are going to be here in South Africa because of COVID, which is understandable. But yeah, I think that might come at a big shock, something just flew on me. There might be a big shock for some of the players. They've never played in Europe before, some of those guys, and now suddenly they're thrown into this big competition.
I think it will be different, but if there's no fans, which at the moment there's not, then it doesn't really matter where you're playing. I mean, what will be difficult will be time away from the families, time away from home. You know, people have wives and kids, or some of these blokes probably still live with their parents, and it's difficult to just go for weeks and weeks in a foreign environment. But the fact that there's no fans will make it easier because there's less pressure, no one's booing you or calling you names, or I mean, some of us have been to Newlands, you know, there's some very select words coming out of the crowd. So I think it will be a challenge, but I think I think we'll manage.
What do you think about because that's all really good points. So that is nice that we won't have there won't necessarily be a home ground advantage in terms of the spectators, but the conditions though, because the conditions like Scotland, really cold. I don't know if they're playing the games in one country specifically or across Scotland, Ireland and Wales and Italy. Who's that?
I've never heard of them, mate.
Never heard of them.
Bro, those are two teams that we will definitely win. At least we're guaranteed 2 wins, all the South African teams, because Benetton and whatever the other team's called, they're not great.
Yeah,
no offense to them if any of you guys are listening. But.
Yeah, I'm hopeful about our chances. I think the Bulls and the Sharks are going to do well. They should on paper.
Yeah. Sharks
are building a really good team. They've got money. Bulls have money as well, so I think they're going to do well. Lions and Stormers, I think might struggle a bit. Unfortunately, I think Lions have a better chance of pulling it off than the Stormers at this point. But again, things can change so quickly. Do you also think Sharks Bulls have the best chance?
I honestly had no idea what to expect because we've never seen this sort of thing happen where we have South African clubs playing against European clubs. And I think anything could happen because the style of rugby will be completely different. If you watch a Pro 14 or an English Premiership game compared to watching a Super Rugby game, it's like almost 2 different sports. They play a completely different style of rugby. So it'll be interesting to see how, when you put those 2 teams together, what will happen. So I don't want to make any hectic predictions because you know the Stormers might come out and win their first 4 games, and I also haven't seen the fixtures, to be honest with you. So I don't know who's playing who, but I know if you playing against Leinster, you'll struggle no matter who you are. Leinster are quality outfit, so Leinster, Munster are probably favourites against any of our teams, but anything can happen on the day. And I think all 4 of our teams have the players to do well. We have to see how they adapt.
Yeah, I've got quite a strong opinion about the players in the teams. We spoke a little bit about this off air when we were Brian earlier, but so I think that South Africa's at a huge disadvantage, and I think it's quite unfair, the system we've been put into now. So when we were playing in Super Rugby, New Zealand and Australia were kind of in the same boat as us because they were also losing players. We were losing the most players to overseas clubs, but they were also losing players, so they were kind of in the same boat. But also, we weren't losing players to the teams in New Zealand and Australia. But now we're playing against the teams that have taken our players. So I think that is actually, it just feels a bit weird and unfair because now we've got the situation where there's huge differences in the clubs, how much money they have. So I think it's, a team like Leinster, a team like Munster, they have way more money than the Bulls, the Sharks, the Stormers, and so on. And the currency difference is huge as well. So there's, just in terms of budget, there's huge discrepancies, and we have already lost so many of our players to these teams. Guys like Jason Jenkins, he's just signed for Munster. He's a Bulls player. He played in Japan for a little bit, but he was playing for the Bulls last year. So I think that Pro 14, the guys in charge, they need to incorporate rules into how many foreign-born players are allowed in the starting lineup, the lineups of the different teams. How do you feel about this?
Yeah, I agree. I agree with you on the most part. I think if they implemented a rule now that said maybe two foreign-born players or two non-Irish or Scottish internationals in the starting 15 and maybe two on the bench or something like that, just to create more balance. Could be an interesting rule to take into consideration. The other thing I forgot to mention earlier, the Bulls will have no problem acclimatizing because half their team has played in Europe before. They were Morné Steyn, Vermeulen, Nizam Carr. They've all played overseas and come back, so they will be used to the European conditions. But back to your point, I fully understand what you're saying, and like if you're playing up against Munster, you'll play against Angie Snyman, Chris Kluter, Damien Dalendi, some of South Africa's top talent playing against you.
Yeah.
And like if you have Munster against the Stormers and you have Rikus Pretorius up against Dalendi. Dalendi's a World Cup winning inside centre who's an old Stormers boy. So how is that a fair comparison? Because it should be Dalendi for the Stormers against some Irish bloke playing for Munster. So I completely understand your point, but on the other hand, we have some youngsters who the problem is the youngsters are getting chances because the experienced guys are going overseas. And then the youngsters become too good and then they also go overseas. Yeah. So there's going to be some youngsters in this competition who are going to get a chance, who are going to play well, and then they're going to be gone. So I completely understand what you're saying, and there definitely needs to be some sort of a rule, but it's a difficult one. Yeah,
I understand it's difficult because it's professional sport, I get all of that, but we also need to even the playing fields. Yeah. And if this competition was happening 10 years ago, then I would feel way more optimistic and excited about it, because then it would literally be our best players against Ireland's best players, our best players against the best Welsh players, and that would be really cool. But now, to me, this would just feel like the English Premier League. The teams that have the most money, they're the ones that do well. A team like Southampton in the Premier League, they produce so many good players, but then Liverpool just buys them out. So it's just going to turn into who has the most money.
But let's not forget that Brock Harris plays for the Newport Gwent Dragons, and I mean, how does anyone stand a chance against Brock Harris? I mean, he's probably the greatest Stormers prop of all time. Now playing against us, I mean, how on earth can we possibly cope with him?
Yeah, it's so I'm quite salty about it, because my biggest thing is I care about the interest of South African rugby. That's my biggest concern. So I feel like it does ruin the authenticity of the competition a bit. People shouldn't look at it as, I don't think it's a fair assessment to, if for example the Stormers do very badly, I don't think it's a fair assessment to say, South African or Irish domestic rugby is better than South African domestic rugby. Just they have more money, so they can buy more players. So also, like a team like Leinster, a lot of people say, Leinster, they're fully Irish. They've only got one or two foreign-born players. But I mean, they just pack all of their Irish internationals into that team, except for one or two guys here and there. But I mean, if we could pack all of our best domestic players and all of our Springboks into the Bulls and the Sharks, two teams or one team, they would be fantastic. They would be as good as Leinster. So that's how I feel about it.
Well, let me ask you, what would you do if all four South African teams go unbeaten and make the semi-finals in this Rainbow Cup?
Then I think that the Irish team should be very embarrassed. I think they should feel so. Even with our players, they still can't beat us. That would be very humiliating for them. So, but that would be a huge statement. That would be cool.
You seem to only have a problem with the Irish players. What about the Scottish teams?
No, them too. I mean, Edinburgh are terrible. I don't know why I keep referring to Ireland, but Edinburgh have so many South Africans. And just so you guys know, I don't have a problem with South Africans going abroad. I understand why the individual does it, and if you're a South African that's playing abroad, I fully support that and I understand that. But I also care about the game as a whole, and I think that this is harming the game as a whole in some ways. It's benefiting the game in some ways, but I also want to see the authenticity of the sport upheld. So there's arguments for and against both points. The Six Nations was pretty actually, it was extremely exciting. So many upsets. I think everyone expected England to win it, England or France, and neither of those teams won it. What did you think of the competition?
Extremely exciting, and this is something, a topic that I would like to raise, because I think the Six Nations is more exciting because of the South Africans playing for the certain teams. So Duan van der Merwe is box office playing for Scotland. Ollie Keppel, Hugh Jones, all exceptional players. Hugh Jones is actually Scottish, but he made his name here. From that French lock, Willemse or something, he's good, South African bloke. CJ Stander playing for Ireland in his final test match, his 51st and final. I think the Six Nations has been exceptional, and I think teams like Scotland are becoming competitive, which is great. And the reason is because of some of these players. You know, they have more depth now because they have players like Ollie Keppel, Via Pianal, Hugh Jones, Duan van der Merwe. They wouldn't have the same squad depth as they do now. And I think it's so exciting to have a competition where you have 5 teams that could win on the day, and Italy. Italy also, they get a certificate for participation. But I think it's really awesome to have a competition where you have England beating France, but then coming 5th, and you have France in a position where they can win the Six Nations, and then not winning it at the death, and Wales can win the Grand Slam, but then they lose in the last minute to a try to France. The permutations, you have to have a maths degree to figure out who's going to win on what day. So I just think it's exceptional. It's exciting. What do you think?
I agree with you. I think the Six Nations was awesome, really. So, I mean, World Rugby have accomplished their goal of bringing up the weaker nations to make them more competitive. So, I mean, the residency rule, where guys like Duan van der Merwe can play for Scotland, that's obviously a great benefit, and it's good for the sport as a whole. So if you're thinking of the sport as a whole, it's great. And I think the Six Nations was more exciting than the Rugby Championship in recent years, because the Rugby Championship, obviously there's fewer nations as well, and Argentina, they're kind of like our Italy.
Oh, last year they were good, but up until last year.
Up until last year, they were like our Italy, you know, they kind of always would lose. So in terms of the global game, the residency rule is cool, but I still think that, because the thinking behind the residency rule is like, South Africa has so much depth, so why not give some of our players abroad, okay? And for those teams, it's nice. A lot of people say the residency rule, it can add a lot of good to the game. It can do a lot of good. It can do a lot of good for the teams they're going to, yes. But again, I'm concerned about South African rugby, and I feel like, why do we as a country have to suffer losing players just because we produce so many players? And SARU have done a great job in growing the sport locally, in developing excellent competitions, Varsity Cup, excellent schoolboy rugby, all of this, which it breeds excellent rugby players in South Africa, and so many good rugby players. So it kind of feels like we now have to pay and give up some of these players to nations who haven't been pulling their weight. Teams like Scotland, some will say, oh, it's such a small population. But what has Scotland been doing to grow the game locally? What have they been doing to produce top quality players? I don't think they've been doing enough. And now we have to suffer and give up some of our best players that we have produced for teams that aren't pulling their weight. Now, again, I understand why the individual does it. I don't blame Duan van der Merwe for playing for Scotland. No hate towards him. I would probably do the same thing if I have never lived a day. If I've only lived 3 years in Scotland and I was offered to play for the international team and I knew I wouldn't be a Springbok, I would take that opportunity. I understand it, but I'm also thinking about what's best for the sport. And to me, it's still weird if we play Scotland tomorrow and if Duan van der Merwe scores a winning try, I would struggle to accept that, because I would love to see us playing. When we play Scotland, I want to see the pride of Scotland. I want to see Scotland's best. But I've said it in previous podcasts, it feels like international rugby is becoming club rugby, and it's just about who has the most money. The residency rule, only the rich nations benefit. We don't benefit, the poor nations don't benefit. We don't have any foreign-born players. Beast was the only one, and he came here at a very young age. None of the Southern Hemisphere teams benefit from the residency rule. Only the rich nations do. So I think the model is biased towards the richer nations.
Yeah, and I agree with everything you're saying, but I don't think that we are, as a national team, we're not suffering because we're the world champions. And the last 4 World Cups have been won by us in New Zealand. So we're not really suffering in that sense because we have enough talent to still cope. And I also think, why would you want to have players who get lost in the system in South Africa, who have to go and work in a factory one day, when they could be playing rugby in the 3rd tier of France, for example, or go and make a career in Scotland, when here they would not even get offered a Super Rugby contract, for example. Like Cheslin Colby can feed his family for the next 20 years on his salary in Toulouse, and Etzebeth for another one. So I just think maybe it's not great for South African Rugby Union, but it's great for the pool of South African rugby players who are looking for a way to further their life, and they don't have any other skills besides rugby. I think it gives those players a great opportunity, and you'll see it with the Fijians and the Tongans and the Samoans playing in France. They send thousands of euros back to the islands to support their families because of rugby. So I think rugby is beautiful in that way, and I understand what you're saying, and I think that's what I love about rugby, is the opportunities it gives people, and I think there has to be a balance. And I think what you are saying is that the balance is starting to tip now, where it's becoming a bit ridiculous. So they're losing the like you say, the authenticity of what is international rugby, and I agree with you. I think there is a way to keep everyone happy and to find a good balance. I'm just glad I'm not the guy that has to make those decisions.
Yeah, well, as I said, I understand why the individual does it, and I'm happy about it, and I feel very happy for guys that can make a career abroad. I really do. But I also think we need to think about what's best for the sport as a whole as well. And when you watch international soccer, when you watch France, all those guys are French. When you watch Spain, all those guys are Spanish, and that's cool. Like for me, it's really cool. Like watching the best of that country. Do you think Wales deserved the title?
I was hoping you were going to ask me. I thought we'd forgotten about Wales. Well, obviously they deserve it if they won it. I mean, that's how it works. But I think Wales, 3 of the games that Wales won, the opposition got a red card. So it makes you think, like, are Wales good or are Wales lucky? And, Scotland were winning against Wales and they got a red card. England got a red card against Scotland, or I think they did. I mean, against Wales, sorry. We're getting all confused. International rugby, no one knows who's who anymore.
Yeah.
I mean, they bottled it against France. They were dominating France in France for the Grand Slam, and they threw that game away. And France had a chance to win it against Scotland last Friday, and they didn't. So, of course, Wales deserve it, but they're not great, Wales. They don't play exciting rugby. But they seem to be back to their winning ways, which is good, because it's good to have a strong Welsh team. It's good for world rugby. So I'm happy to see them winning, and they always seem to perform well in the Lions years.
Yeah, I think most people were expecting we're expecting Wales to be very poor in this Six Nations, but they ended up winning it. I thought France were going to win it, or England, as we said. England, second last on the log for the first time in a long time.
Yeah, and it's the first time in history they've lost to Wales, Scotland and Ireland in the Six Nations.
Crazy. What do you make of English rugby at the moment?
It's a shambles at the moment. I mean, you can't judge the whole of England rugby based off one Six Nations, because they did come second in the World Cup and they beat New Zealand at the World Cup, and last year they won the Six Nations and they won the Autumn Nations Cup. So they've had a couple of bad games. You can't write them off. They did beat France. And they beat Italy.
They beat Italy.
I mean, sure. I mean, South Africa didn't beat Italy. So.
That was the one time. Neither did New Zealand in the World Cup.
Yeah, exactly. It was a draw.
Exactly, it was a draw.
Yeah, it's strange because they have the world's most expensive coach. They stole Matthew Proudfoot. They've got John Mitchell.
They want Rassie.
Yeah, they've got some of the best coaches in the world. They've got some of the best players in the world. And at the moment, they're a shambles. They've got nothing to offer on attack. They're giving away penalties left, right, and centre. Something's not right in England. And it's interesting to see how many English players will get picked for the Lions, because five or six of the starting English players play for Saracens, and none of them played well. And they're now going to go and play in the Championship in the second division of England. Will Warren Gatland want to pick them for the Lions?
So where do England actually go from here? Do they get a new?
I think you misread the situation, right?
So what does England actually do from here? Because do they get a new coach? I don't know. World Cup's only 2 years away. What would you do? Would you get rid of Eddie?
No. It'll cost them too much to get rid of Eddie, because I have to pay him out 2 years out of his contract. I don't know. It's going to be very interesting. I think England have some exceptional players playing in the Premiership who are not getting picked. And Eddie Jones seems to have this idea that, like, when the media says that they should pick someone, he will deliberately go against that. Mm-hmm. And Sam Simmons is winning man of the match week after week, playing 8 for Exeter. He's the top try scorer in the Premiership. He scored twice as many tries as anyone else. And he's still picking Believer Napola at 8, who's not on form, hasn't played rugby since last year because Saracens are in the Championship. And he seems to not want to change his mind. So Eddie Jones is very autocratic, it seems. Mm. And that's fine when you're winning. When you're beating the All Blacks in the semi-final of a Rugby World Cup, great. When you start losing 3 games out of the 5 in the Six Nations, then people are allowed to ask questions. So I think Eddie Jones is right to come under criticism because he's doing a poor job, but I wouldn't get rid of him because he's done well in the past. So he has the key. It's just not clicking right now. So I think England will come right. I don't really care.
I'm happy with them being average.
I don't really mind, but I wouldn't write them off just yet.
Yeah, I have to let's switch it to Scotland just because we don't want to keep speaking about the same team the whole time. Scotland, they really impressed me in the Six Nations. They really have stepped up big time. Defensively, they're doing a lot better. They're a lot more exciting to watch as well. So I think Scotland can get a lot of credit for what they've done. They made a lot of upsets. Their game against England, which they won, was a big upset. Yeah. And beating France as well. I think people expected France to win. So I think they can be quite proud of themselves. Yeah,
Scotland's come a long way. And they used to be second worst to Italy. You know, they're guaranteed 5th place. Yeah. And maybe they get one or 2 wins here or there. And now they're a real outfit. And I think they're difficult to beat. They've got Finn Russell and Stuart Hogg, who are 2 world-class operators. Finn Russell is the coolest bloke on the block. He will throw any 50-50 pass, but for him it's like a 90-10 because it comes off 9 times out of 10. Stuart Hogg is exceptional. Stuart Hogg will start at fullback for the Lions.
Definitely.
There's no doubt. He's just a world-class operator at fullback.
And he's been world-class for a few years now. Yeah. Consistently, he's been
he got a hair transplant, so he looks cool again. Just all-round good guy, you know. He's just doing well in all facets of life. And their flankers, Hamish Watson, brilliant. So, I mean, Hamish Watson might find himself on a plane to South Africa with the Lions, and usually Scotland get 2 allocated tickets to be on the Lions tour, but I think this year we might see a bit more than 2 Scots on the...
2 allocated tickets.
I think this year they might have a couple more.
Yeah. Italy have been underperforming for a long time now. Yeah. I think they need to start giving someone else a chance. What do you think about... Because this is like the most popular idea, to do like a relegation system.
Yeah, I think there has to be some sort of a system because Georgia haven't lost a game in the second division Six Nations since 2012 or something silly like that. And Italy haven't won a Six Nations game since 2015. So what more needs to happen for them to see like, So who cares if Georgia play in the Six Nations next year and lose every game? Italy, we're going to lose every game anyway. So it doesn't. Italy, they haven't got 1 point this year on the log, and their points difference was minus 160. They got no bonus points. They're not a threat. They haven't even looked like beating anyone. And I don't see what the harm can be in having another team that's just going to lose every week. At least it's a different team, someone different to watch. And someone who's played against Georgia, myself, playing for Germany, they're hard as nails, and they will put up a fight. I mean, they might not win, but like I say, Italy aren't going to win anyway. So the only way Georgia can take the next step in their career or in their path as an aspiring rugby nation would be to give them a chance. And I don't see what else they need to do to get a chance. They never lose, and Italy never win. So why not at least have a playoff? If Georgia lose the playoff, then fine. But you can't not have a playoff.
At least, like a 3-game playoff or something. That's a cool idea. Yeah, and maybe if they're in the Six Nations for a few seasons, they'll get better, because I think that was the idea with Italy. Let's put Italy in the Six Nations, maybe they'll get better. And it didn't work. So maybe with Georgia it will work. I feel Argentina joining the Rugby Championship, it's worked.
Yeah, so Argentina have gotten better and better. And they beat the All Blacks last year. They can beat anyone on their day.
They've beaten all of us now. They've beaten us, they've beaten Australia and All Blacks.
Well, you must remember, Argentina made it to the semi-final of a World Cup.
Yeah, twice.
So, I mean, Italy have never seen anything but the pool stages. So, I've got nothing against Italy, and I wish Italy all the best, and I want Italy to be better. But as long as they're not going to be better, it's unfair to just keep them in there like, what's the point?
They haven't earned it. Yeah. So, staying kind of on the theme of international rugby, let's chat about the Lions tour. So the decision was made that the tour is going to happen here in South Africa. We had a full episode dedicated to this a few episodes back, where we spoke about the different options. We should do this. We both agreed that they should rather postpone it, and that was our number one option. But it became clear that it has to happen this year. They need the money this year, and logistically it had to happen this year. So do you prefer this decision, it being here in South Africa, even with the possibility of no fans, rather than in England or the tour taking place against Australia or France? What do you think?
Yeah, I'm not sure. I mean, I don't know how realistic it would be if it was in England, if there'd be fans anyway. So yeah, I'm excited that I can sit at home and watch the rugby on my couch. That's great for me as a fan. I understand, like you say, that Saru needs the money this year. If they don't have the Lions tour this year, Saru will go bankrupt. So it makes sense. Will it be the same without fans? No. There's no two ways around that. That's it. But am I happier that it's here with no fans as opposed to maybe being in the UK with fans? Selfishly, a little bit, yes. When I don't want to be watching the Springboks against the Lions with 50,000 Lions supporters. That's not what it's about either. So it won't be as good than having packed out Newlands and Ellis Park and whatever, but I'm just excited that we'll be able to watch it soon. Hopefully.
Me too. Yeah, I'm also happy that it's happening here in South Africa, because we're hoping there will be some fans, and if there are some fans, then our economy gets the benefits, and no offense to England, but our economy needs it more. So I'm really happy it's happening here in South Africa. Even if there's no fans, it's still sticking to the formula of what a Lions tour is. Them touring our country. The only thing that will change is no fans. So, which is obviously a huge thing, but I feel it's better than going to the UK. And as you say, they might not have fans either. So, obviously there's a lot of rumors at the moment. Nothing's confirmed, but there's rumors that the domestic games, like Stormers against Lions, Sharks against Lions, all of that, there's talk that that's going to be cancelled due to, there needs to be isolation periods for the different teams, and there will be too many teams they need to isolate. So apparently there's plans of the Lions and the Springboks both playing USA and Japan as warm-up games, and then doing a 4-test series against the Lions and the Springboks. How do you feel about that?
Oh, I'm happy to watch 4 tests. As a fan, I'm very happy to watch 4 tests. I think it's a pity for the unions, because the unions could do with the money as well. And the youngsters playing at unions, it's only once every 12 years you get to play against the Lions. So that would be a pity. But as a Springbok fan, 4 Lions test matches sounds incredible. I'm not going to lie to you.
Yeah, I think that's probably a good option. Logistically, it makes sense. 4 tests, that will be cool to watch. What's your prediction for the Lions tour? Do you think 2-2? Do you think 4-0 Springboks? Do you think 3-1 Springboks?
I have no basis to answer this question because we haven't played rugby in 18 months.
But your biased opinion has to be 3-1 Springboks, right? That's my biased opinion. That's probably not based on fact, but that's what my heart tells me.
I think we'll do well. You know, people keep saying we haven't played together for so long, but the Lions haven't played together either because they're 4 different countries. Yeah. So, you know, we've been playing the Preparation Cup now, then we'll be playing the Rainbow Cup. And yes, we haven't played as one team, but the Lions are going to be 4 different teams coming together. So, of course, both teams are facing the same challenge. So I don't think that's very valid. And I think if we play anything like we did in the World Cup final, you know, 32-12, what can I say?
Yeah, one day I'm still hoping for some sort of Southern Hemisphere team.
Yeah, it would be interesting.
That would be cool.
I don't know how many Springboks would make that team. It would probably be a very All Black dominated team. But
yeah, depending on when, I suppose.
Yeah, no Australians, unfortunately. But anyway, try again next year.
Yeah, the Argentinian players. Okay, let's not get into that whole discussion now. We'll be here for another 2 hours. But that always awesome speaking to you, Mark. Thanks for the cool chat, guys. Thank you for tuning in. Please feel free to leave suggestions. We're going to have another episode soon within the next few weeks. Hopefully 2 weeks from now we'll do our next episode, release it. So thanks for tuning in, and see you guys next time.